brilliant bowling. That's what he does.
Hi guys, welcome to Oliveboard's editorial session. So basically today's session I could not take live because there was a power cut. So this is a recording. This of course it will be the complete editorial discussion of today. And I've picked up the article from Financial Express and it's an important one from your essay point of view as well. So let's begin our discussion. Also guys, remember we have all our courses on the Edge platform. There's money back offer for all our mains batches, right? Even IBPS clerk is started, so you will get a money back offer. If you do not clear the exam, you'll get your money refunded in your wallet. Starting with the topic here, it's towards a greener tomorrow. So something related to climate, obviously important in terms of when we say essay topics, they give topics like related to environment or climate change, right? So here this is from Financial Express newspaper. Today's newspaper, you'll find this topic. First, I will write the meanings of these words for all of you, and then we'll start with the summary discussion. Have been vocal about means they have expressed. When you express opinion and complaints in a speech, when you're vocal about something, basically express opinions or complaints in a speech. Next is envision, meaning imagine or visualize a future possibility. Enthused, express eagerness or interest, right? Unprecedented, this is one word we have discussed so many times in our editorials. It's always there. Never done or known before. Never done or known before. Scale means to which extent, basically here. So Indian government has shown a strong will, basically has shown interest. When we say has shown strong will, meaning has shown interest and has expressed opinions about importance of a greener tomorrow, right? In the budget speech also, Nirmala Sitharaman, the finance minister, visualized a pollution-free India with green, Mother Earth and blue skies. So here the PM Modi's vow, which is to double the India's non-fossil fuel target by 2020 at a climate summit. And here if you see the political climate, all of these leaders are actually have expressed eagerness to increase the country's green growth, right? So this is a very, very positive thing, and achieving these ambition targets but requires working at a scale which is not done before. We need a huge investment. Also, we need a scale and size of investment which we have earlier not used, and that is why it's not a very easy task, the writer is trying to say. So wow means the promise of the prime minister to double India's non-fossil fuel target, right? So basically to use cleaner energies, and this is one thing which we want to achieve by 2020. This is the promise, this is the vow the Prime Minister has taken. Okay, continue reading. I'll write the meanings till then. Mechanisms means system or parts of working, right? Basically a process. So mechanisms or systems or process of working. Next is optimize, means to make effective, perfect or useful. Optimize the development. To make effective or useful the deployment of resources. When you say deployment, the use of resources, right? Deployment is use of resources. Now, like we discussed earlier, here we are talking about transformational scales, means something that will bring in huge change. So at that extent, to that extent, when we say transformational scale, we mean, of course, something which will impact in a huge way, right? So transformational, that will bring huge change. Credible means able to be believed, convincing. Validate the results. Validate means prove them, prove the results. Devastating, obviously a negative word. So when we have devastating economic impact of the pandemic, which is devastating impact, meaning destructive, something which is damaging. Next is consequential shift, right? As a consequence. So always try to divide your words and then try to infer the meaning. So consequential means the following shift, the following change. Consequence as a consequence means following, right? Underline means emphasized. When we talk about mitigating, it is reducing. Forefront, which is there, which is obvious, right? At the forefront, we say. Here the complete phrase is also mentioned, at the forefront, right? At the forefront means leading. Basically, in a country which needs upwards of $200 billion of investment in infrastructure per year, we are doing enough to achieve these ambitious targets. Are we doing enough? This is a question asked by writer. So do we have the processes in place? Can we identify gaps? Can we measure our progress if we have made this pledge, right? Can we make full use of resources and, unlock the investment, and so that we can bring in a huge change? Do we have those systems in place? Do we have credible monitoring and reporting systems so that we can prove our results? So we need to answer these questions, right? Considering what is happening currently, like the economic impact of pandemic is huge. We are suffering. The economy is destroyed and damaged, right? So basically, it has required the government to take steps that protects the lives of the citizens, right? So we are basically following that, shifting our focus to a clean energy. Particularly, we have to find out a way on how economy could work in this particular pandemic situation. Now we have to shift our energy on clean energy, right? Shift our focus on clean energy investment. So here this pandemic itself has highlighted that we need to reduce the effects of climate change, and that should be the need, and that should be the basic need, or you can say it should be leading thing for economic growth. So basically, all, if you talk about the overall para, it talks about the questions asked by the writer. Do we have the processes in place? Do we have the ways, mechanisms in place to work? Or, do we have reporting systems? How will we check our results? If we have to focus on our goal of achieving, a greener environment, a greener place, then how will it may be made possible? So next one, I'll write the meanings. Till then, read this para. Okay, so I've written the meanings here. This is a favorable moment to judge whether we have systems for tracking and reporting of these finance flow, right? As this is essential for building trust in the country country data on climate related commitments, or whatever promises or commitments we have in relation to climate. We need to assess whether we have the systems of tracking them, reporting them, and this is a favorable movement. It's a time where we can judge that, right? We also have to measure and monitor the effectiveness of each rupee. So whatever money, whatever investments we are spending on mitigating the effects on reducing the effects of climate change, whether, of course, that is effective or no, we need to see that also, monitor that also. Now, climate policy initiative was released by the Shakti Sustainable Foundation, creating green finance flows from source to end use. So taking in money basically, and from the sources for the end use. So creating that resource, it put forwards that although there are indications of an overall upward trend, increasing trend, right? India's tracked green investment flows still are short, right? Still are not enough. Whatever requirements we have in terms of financing to meet our, commitments with relation to climate change, our requirements are still a lot, right? So the estimated investments that are directed towards this purpose are very small, and it is disproportionate as well. It is not allocated equally between sectors, right? So different sectors, it is still not allocated properly. Now, green finance is now an increasing area of interest for government. The numbers are important from the policy angle, regulatory angle, right? The report also tells us the challenges faced in defining the green finance, right, and tracking green finance across the value chain in India. So basically, it's all about investment, how we still need it, how it's still not enough at the current level, right? And of course, the report which is released, this tells us, right, about how they are trying to create the finance flow from the source to end. So this is the information by the report. Continue reading. I'll just write the meanings. Okay, what else the study has identified? So this is in continuation. So further means additional point. Talks about the challenges in defining and tracking green finance, right? So while across, various national and state level government schemes are already there to combat, to stop the, to of course, to combating climate change, right? To fighting climate change and promoting the green technologies. There is no mechanism or way still to judge their climate relevance in projects, right? So there might be a lot of green projects, right? And they conduct a comprehensive review of the expenditure. But again, there is no such way of judging these, right? There is no such way of assessing these still. So across its value chain, when we say in the first part, if it is mentioned, across the value chain, right, tracking green essence across the, how the transformation is taking place, right? So there's a value chain analysis which is usually done in businesses to examine their activities, to find more opportunities, competitive opportunities. So that is still not there here. If you talk about our green themes, right, our government schemes or national or state level government schemes, right? So here, to combating is fighting, right? Fighting climate change or promoting green technologies. India has followed a new approach when it comes to tagging project activities, right? The credibility of data will be crucial, right? How credible, how much we can believe in the data, how truthful the data is, that is very, very important for attracting green funds if you want investments, right? In particular for a climate change or climate activities, right? So here, this data is is of utmost importance, right? So most overseas infrastructure investors, right? So here, increasingly, if you talk about the credibility of data will be important for attracting green funds in particular, and increasingly most overseas infrastructure investments. Outside investors, if you want to attract them, they look for data, right? It has to be strong data which we should be able to show, and then only we'll get the investments. Now, since various countries, including neighbors like Nepal and Bangladesh, have already begun to do this, right? Reviewing or taking feedback of the climate-related expenditures through a mechanism called CPEIR, Climate Public Expenditure and Institutional Review. So this is based on a methodology given by UNDP. India also needs to adapt this tool, basically, right? We have still not done that. India also needs to adapt this tool. We also would require to identify, classify, assess, and make climate relevant expenditures in the budget. Therefore, only we'll know the estimation, the tracking, where is the expenditure going, whatever expenditure we are, using for climate related activities. Where is it going? It is even effective or no? It is working or no? So that is very, very important. Now, here the CBT could be rolled out in a similar way, and that other social priorities are tagged. Rolled out means to introduce, right? It could be introduced in a similar way like how we introduce the other social issues related tag, right? For example, the gender, scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, component of the budget is a case in point. Is a case in point when we use this phrase. I think we have discussed this earlier also in one of our editorials. Again, this is one phrase you will find usually. So a case in point means an example from which we can learn, right? An example that illustrates, that gives example on what is being discussed. So it's a case in point. It's an example which tells us what we are discussing about, right? So here that is also an example that has made it easier for the government to review, to recognize the impact of budgetary supports. So this exercise was arrived at not from the need for accounting, but from the need to track and review the implementation. So this basically, if you see the overall paragraph itself, say the overall editorial is about this, the need for accounting, responsibility. If we are spending or if we are investing in green projects, is it working or no? Is it effective or no? Okay, next one. Similarly, CBT cannot only help in ensuring that existing spending structures are aligned, means they should be move along with the climate objectives, obviously, and they should also facilitate, means make possible the use of something, right? Facilitate means provide, basically, make possible the use of something, right? So here there should be more engagement of government and development partners to mobilize additional resources, to bring in additional resources. In India, there is a political will to push the green growth agenda. The state and union budgets are also conducive, right? Are okay in the current format. Basically, currently, if you talk about presently, they are not conducive, not very helpful to this green transition. They're not very open to this moving to the green transition, right? So the government needs to restructure, replan their way in report schemes, action plans, so that there can be steps taken, right, to facilitate intra and interstate comparison of objectives. So each state, they can work on their own climate objectives, and then there should be comparisons which state is performing well, right? So basically, it took India so much time, a decade, to raise awareness up at the national and state level for gender budgeting. Similarly, we need to spend equal time for developing a tagging tool for climate. So climate change has already caused this catastrophic, means huge, right? Okay, so has caused catastrophe is what? It is destruction, right? It is disaster. So it has already caused disastrous destruction, and it threatens the loss of lives across the country. So this is the factor we need to focus on, and for this, government should make states responsible. There should be new plans for them, new schemes for them. There should be comparison between states, which is performing well or which is achieving its climate objectives and which state is not. So all these steps need to be taken, right? So yeah, okay, we have one last para which talks about how it is time to align. To align means to combine our budgetary outlets, you understand, the plans, right? So how to combine our budget outlays or budget plans in a manner which is responsive, right? So outlay is the expenditure plan that we have, right? We need to align it in a manner which is responsive to climate change, right? So recently published report by RBI also focuses on the need for incorporating ESG criteria. So incorporating means including, right? Incorporate business models also. You need to include this particular part, and creation of framework so that we can identify, assess, manage financial risk which might arise out of climate risk. So this tracking exercise undertaken means done by, of course, the CPI is a step. This is one big step in this direction. So it presents a conservative picture of who finances what and the extent to which finance is aligned with the country's policy objective. A coherent reporting framework. A coherent is, again, when we talk about this word, it means complete, right? Coherent is complete, right? Logical, a consistent reporting framework. Consistent, which is, again, goes with everything. It is logical, it is reasonable. We need that framework. It should lay down, it should give us assumptions and methods for assisting our financial needs. It should serve as a sound basis, means rational, right? Rational basis for cross-sectoral and government donor discussions for climate action. So building consensus, building agreement on the definition of green finance should be the logical step. So this is the term we are reading again and again. Green finance, what is it? The investment we require for climate actions, right? So here it should be for both public and private sectors to weigh their activities, to judge their activities for climate relevance, whether their activities are relevant for the climate or no. So these are the steps we need to take for a climate. Now, consensus is a very common word which means agreement. Forefront means leading. In the front. Catastrophic means disastrous. Coherent way means logical and consistent. Never known or done before is unprecedented. Never known or done before. Now, if you talk about what can be done for climate fund or green fund, if you get a topic like this, now you have points to write something on what can be done, what is to be done. We have to make assessments. We have to rely on data. We should have credible data if you want more investors. So all of these points you can add if you want to write about what can be done for climate at the government level, at state level, at individual level, or at company level, and about green funds, right? So tone, if you see, overall it's very simple. You of course know it is suggestive. It's a lot of suggestions by the writer on what all can be done, right? And there were questions also asked by the writer in between, to which he gives the answers also, right? So he provokes us to think about these matters, right? So guys, today, because we could not have a live session, so I'm doing this video. I hope you'll watch it, read this paragraph, and do share and like the session. And I'll see you tomorrow for editorial at 9 a.m. Right? Thank you.